How to go from being a privateer to a paid racer. Hey guys, Andrew Hammer here from Driven Athlete Training on our MotoFit TV episode number 34. Today I'm going to be talking about privateers and their transition to becoming professional riders and racers. So before I get into this, no, I'm not a professional rider and racer, and no, I haven't made this transition myself. This is purely from my perspective in terms of what I've seen with other riders and racers from being around riding and racing for too many years. So these are just a couple of insights and things that I've picked up, as well as the insight that I've learnt with the mindset performance side of things with working with riders and racers as well. So the first thing that comes up with a lot of riders and racers is when they're moving from that privateer stage, wanting to move to that paid stage, whether that's on or mostly on a national level or even international level, is they set their goals in the wrong area. So the privateers are coming up, let's say for the MX Nationals here in Australia. Okay, we've got guys that are running maybe top 15, top 20, top 25, top 30, and they set their goal to be able to work on being a professional rider and racer. So at the moment, I think it's about the top 10, mostly the top 8 to top 10 of factory guys. And the biggest mistake that a lot of riders and racers make is that they aim on being the first privateer. Okay, so what that means is that by being able to be the first privateer, they hope that they're going to get the attention of the factory guys and that they're going to be able to get a factory ride because they're the first privateer. But when we're looking at that mindset, if you're the first privateer, why does any factory team have an incentive to be able to take you on board? Okay, so in other words, if you're aiming to be the first privateer, then you're still not a factory rider. Okay, you're a privateer because you're the first privateer. Whereas if you can aim towards being able to be, say, top 5, top 10, being able to mix it with the factory guys, then you no longer have to be the first privateer because you're actually helping to, you're stealing someone else's ride, okay? Because the factory teams are going to look at you and they're going to see that you're up with the factory guys and you don't have factory equipment. Whereas most privateers look at their equipment as being subpar to what the factory guys have. Now that may be the case. The factory guys may all have the help and have the support that maybe you don't have, but there's other areas you can make that up, whether that's through fitness, whether that's through training more, whether that's through having a more specific plan with the way you ride, the skills that you work with, the type of training you do, the way you fuel yourself nutrition-wise. There's all these other areas that you can make up that these factory guys haven't been able to make up. Or maybe while they're out doing promotions and modeling new gear, you've got the time to be able to focus on working on different areas. So the first mistake is that they focus on being the first privateer when that's not the thing that's actually going to get you the factory ride. The thing that's going to get you the factory ride is beating factory riders. So that's the first thing. So making sure you don't set your goals too low and making sure that you're not, so I guess with your mind, you need to be able to position your mind to be able to achieve things that you want to achieve. Now, this ties into my next point, whereas a lot of riders and racers focus again on the wrong goal from a different perspective now, where they look at where the factory guys are and they look at where they are. Now, factory teams don't hire guys based on where you are, based on the amount of factory rides that are out there or how many riders are out there. Okay, they pick their riders and racers based on the results they get. So when you're going into each ride, when you're going into each race meet, you shouldn't be focusing on how many factory riders are in front of you or how many privateers are behind you, okay, or where you've come. You need to be focusing on where you are overall, and that needs to be your focus. So the other thing that I see a lot of is privateers will get a factory ride and they spend all their time, okay, all the years and years and years since juniors, they're putting in all the hard work with their training, with their riding, and their aim is to be able to get to a factory ride, okay, and to get paid. And then they get to that point and they kind of get stuck. Okay, they don't get the results. Maybe they lose a bit of momentum, and the reason they lose that drive is because they've spent such a long period of time working towards something, and then they've got it, and then they need to be able to shift their goals. And a lot of riders and racers don't do that. They don't shift their goals, and they work on just keeping the factory ride rather than actually continuing to progress. So the results don't start to improve. So what this means is you need to be able to shift your goals to looking at positions, looking at overall positions. Where do you want to be this year? It's not about where you want to be with the privateers or where you want to be with the factory guys. Where do you need to be overall? Where do you want to be? Top 10, top 5, top 3? And then make that happen, okay? There's plenty of examples of riders and racers that have been privateers that have done really well and have pushed up against the factory guys, and that's the reason they have factory rides. If you look at all the guys that have factory rides, okay, they didn't come off Pee-wees or 65s on a factory ride. It's because they've been able to put the time in, put the effort in. They've got the results to be able to stay up there. Okay, that's how they've got the factory ride. They've got the factory ride from being up with the factory guys, no matter what type of equipment they've had. That's how they got there in the first place. So it's about being able to shift your focus and making sure that you're focusing on the right things. One of the examples I use with a lot of our races, and maybe I'm not sure if I've used it on here before, maybe I have, but if you have a look around you at the moment, if you look at all the things that are red, okay, so I want you to have a look around while you're watching this video, look at all the things that you can see that are red, that stand out as red. And I want you to make a mental note of those things. Now I want you to close your eyes and I want you to have a look around. So make sure your eyes are closed and I want you to have a look, I want you to tell me or keep in your mind all the things that are green, okay? So now you can pick up all the things that are green. We got your eyes closed. Now open your eyes. Now have a look around and have a look at all the things that are actually green. Now what you'll find is that there's a lot of things that you missed because your attention was so focused on everything that was red, okay, you only looked out for the red stuff, which means you missed a lot of the green stuff. So when I asked you to close your eyes, your brain hadn't been able to pick up all the green things that are around. You missed a lot of things. So the same thing happens with your riding and racing. Like when you go into riding and racing, you're constantly looking at whether you're the first or the second or the third privateer, then you're always going to be mixing with the privateers because that's where you're focusing your attention. Whereas if you rank yourself in terms of where the factory guys are and go, okay, I was the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th factory guy, then that gives you a better area to be able to focus because now you're focusing on a factory ride and you're focusing on the overall results rather than focusing on just a portion of the field. So a lot of people have limiting beliefs there where they think that because they're on privateer equipment that they can't get a factory ride or mix it with the factory guys, when that's just not true. Plenty of examples, and one of the examples that stands out for me was Dan Reardon back in the, it was years ago when he was on the Wales Kawasaki, okay? And he was mixing it up with Ryan Marmont who was on a factory ride and they were going backwards and forwards for the championship. Okay, he wasn't complaining about not having factory gear. Yes, he may have had some good stuff on his bike, okay, and some of you may have the opportunity to have that and some of you may not. But at the end of the day, he still got up there and he got the results and that's how he got to where he is today. And now look at how well he's going. So you need to be able to get those types of results, but you need to be able to make sure you don't have limiting beliefs in terms of just limiting yourself to smaller goals when you really need to be able to set your goals a lot bigger. Because when you set your goals a lot bigger, it gives you a lot more room to move, a lot more perspective, and actually be able to achieve them. So I guess they're the few things to focus on. Is number one, not having limiting beliefs. Number two, setting proper goals in terms of making sure you're looking at the overall goal in terms of position-wise where you want to be over the year, not basing yourself on having a factory ride or basing yourself on being the first privateer, okay? It's the overall solid goal and being able to work towards that, and then having an action plan as well. Like, look at the factory guys, look at what they're doing, but then think about how you can do things better, okay? Don't try and just copy everyone else. Yes, there are certain elements and systems that work really well, but try and do things that they aren't doing. Like if they're going out partying after every MX Nationals round, then don't go partying and go and train and keep your training on track. That will give you the edge there. Okay, if they're going, if they're maybe only riding a few times a week because they don't like to go riding as much or they're not training as much as what they need to, then do more. Do some more training, do some more riding. There's other areas where you can get ahead of them. It's just not in the financial side, it's not in the equipment side. You got to find other areas to be able to do that. And that's the magic in terms of being able to get from a privateer to a paid racer. So that's just my insight on that and my thoughts from what I've seen over the years and this year as well, especially with the MX Nationals. Hope some of you guys are able to find it useful. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. See ya.